Well, Timothy Caulfield is a professor in the Faculty of Law and the School of Public Health at the University of Alberta. He's authored almost 400 academic articles and written several books, the latest of which is called The Certainty Illusion: What You Don't Know and Why It Matters. Timothy is here with us in studio all the way from Alberta.
Thanks for having me
Good
on.
to have you here. Okay, wellness. I feel like it's everywhere, Tim. It's everywhere. Every Instagram ad, TikTok, it's there. Where did wellness and misinformation start to mix?
Well, first of all, you are right. It is absolutely, it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. It's
Right.
massive, and it continues to grow. And I think that we really saw it explode, before the pandemic, when we started the emergence of these celebrity brands. But you can go back further. Wellness, crazy wellness stuff. Think Woodstock, think crystals,
Right.
And then move forward a couple decades, and you've got Dr. Oz, who kind of normalized, I think, pseudoscience and health misinformation. Go forward another decade, you've got Gwyneth and Goop, right? And now go forward to today. It's absolutely everywhere, where you have influencers on a variety of social media platforms pushing nonsense. It has been incredibly normalized, and now it's even become part of political rhetoric.
Yeah.
It's seeped into every corner of our life.
I want to get to the political rhetoric, but I think about the influencers, and I don't even know. Like, I'll admit, I'm a sucker. Like, I've bought the supplements, the green juices, and I try things. What's the harm?
Well, there is. First of all, there is potential for actual harm, like actual physical harm. A lot of these products are not adequately regulated. They could be contaminated. They could actually have harmful substances in them. Or if there is an active ingredient in it, sometimes that does harm too. So there's the potential for actual harm. But there's also financial harm, right? People are paying for stuff that
Big money.
Yeah, sometimes it's very expensive, right? But paying for stuff that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I also think there's a more amorphous, but perhaps even greater harm in that this stuff is often sold on the back of distrust, right? Trying to create distrust of conventional science, of conventional healthcare. It sort of helps to create a world where pseudoscience is normalized. And long term, that does real harm. And we're seeing that harm play out right now.
I really enjoyed your book. You talk about the goodness illusion in there and health halos. Break that down for me.
Yeah, and I think it really goes to a core theme in the book. We're all searching for certainty. We want our decisions to be easier to make. And so we go to a store and we look for labels that signal goodness, right? Organic, natural, non-GMO,
Yeah.
locally grown, right?
It feels like it's a good choice. You're telling me it's not.
At a minimum, those labels are deceiving us. Almost always, the science that allegedly justifies that label is much more complicated and nuanced than implied. Or worse, the science doesn't support it at all, right? But we know the health halos really work. They really work because we're all busy, right? And we want to do what's right for ourselves, for our family, and even for our community.
And we want it quick.
And we want it
Right?
quick.
We don't want the 12-month program. We want the 1-month program, let's be honest.
Yeah, and evidence backs that up
Right.
too. And we're starting to see all these new health halos emerge. Protein. They stick the word protein on a chocolate bar, all of a sudden it's good for you, right?
See, but I remember training as an athlete in my younger days, and protein was a big push. Like, we should be having that so you can fuel yourself to train at a certain level. For the average person, that's not necessarily a great thing?
So what we see happening in the wellness industry is the leveraging of real science too, right? So, there'll be papers talking about, maybe the older adults should be eating more protein, right? And that is used to justify a product that simply isn't necessary. A candy bar with the word protein on it is still a candy bar, right? And most human beings, they get enough protein from the food that they eat. And that's really where you should, a healthy, balanced diet should be the goal.
I just want to pick up one quote in your book. You say, we all need to recognize that our receptivity to messaging, especially content that seems to support our concept of what is good and right, is greatly influenced by our ideological worldview, insecurities, and self-identity. How do we break apart from those things that are so intrinsically part of us?
Yeah, and I think this is more true today than when I wrote those words, right? As someone who's followed the wellness industry for really decades, I cannot believe the degree to which it's about political identity now. So many of the products that we've already talked about are tethered to some degree political identity, right?
In what way?
So even the supplement industry, who's selling supplements now? Alex Jones. Yeah. A lot of anti-vaxxers make their money selling supplements, right? It's become an ideological flag almost to believe in supplement use, and it works. It works, and we all do this. It sounds like I'm pointing fingers, but we all do this. We all have our communities, our tribes that we live in.
It's interesting you mentioned Alex Jones, because when I think about the wellness industry, I might think about it more, if we're picking sides, more of a leftist leaning. Is that not a fair conclusion?
No, a super interesting point, because sometimes, when I talk about this stuff, oh, Caulfield, you're being so partisan.
Right.
The reality is, for much of my career, the wellness noise, let's call it, was emanating from the left, right? I already talked about Woodstock, right?
Yeah.
And you think about the new agey Whole Foods communities, right? So you're right about that, but we've seen an incredible shift. Really over the last 5-6 years, where it's emanating from the right now. And the wellness industry has so much become part of RFK Jr., right? Has become part of the political identity of people on the right.
I want to talk about real harm, because you wrote this book. I'm sure there are new trends coming out that you're watching. What is one thing that deeply concerns you that people are consuming today?
So many that I can pick from, but let's, if I could, I'm going to pick the whole raw phenomenon.
Okay.
Raw, right? So you have raw pet food, you have raw milk, so this is milk that hasn't been treated, and you even have now a trend for raw water. So this is untreated water. This is water. This isn't water that's filtered or something like that.
Right.
This is water straight out of the ground. So with the bacteria and the parasites and the fungus in it, allegedly it's supposed to be better for you. So the term raw has become kind of a health halo. And I think there's a lot of dimensions to that too, right? Because it's almost a political idea to it that, it hasn't been interfered with
touched
by the bureaucracies that are running the world, right? So and there's just, you think about it, clean water, i.e. not raw water, arguably one of the greatest achievements of civilization.
Right.
And here we are.
And something that we strive for around the world.
Yeah.
Right? In our own country, with indigenous communities here that don't have, access to clean drinking water, but globally, this is a massive push for us to purify water, make communities, have access to something that's so vital for their lives.
Not, raw water probably kills, I know it does, hundreds of thousands of people every year. Right?
And we're willingly taking it in and saying,
we think we're supposed to be taking it.
Whew, okay. When I think about wellness, my mind goes to people like me, women that are sitting there thinking, ooh, look at that. That will make my skin look, more beautiful. That will make my face shine. What about the men? Like, are they getting targeted too?
100%, and increasingly so. You're right. I think it's, got to be careful not to overgeneralize, but I think early days, again, Gwyneth, Jessica Alba, they really focused their products on women, and also on the backs of legitimate issues. Women not being taken seriously by our healthcare system.
Right.
That's a legitimate issue, right? Not doing research on women in the same way they do. So they use that to sell nonsense, right? We're seeing that happen with men now. And there has been called the manosphere, right, where the wellness industry is focusing on young men, adolescents, pushing a very narrow view of what it is to be a man, and with the promise that it'll make you healthier, better, more successful, even though the evidence doesn't support it at all. And just like with women, it's causing real problems for young men.
I saw in your book something called testicle tanning. I've never heard of that before. What the heck?
Yeah, I've tried it.
You tried it?
I actually tried it. On a beach in Vancouver, I did it for a documentary.
Oh, wow.
It's a PG documentary. Fear not.
Thank you for letting us know, and our viewers.
The idea is that by tanning your testicles, you'll have more testosterone, you'll become more manly. It's scientifically absurd idea, but really speaks to this alleged idea. Well, it is an idea that being more manly will make you better, right? And you should strive for that. And the sad thing is it's really marketing this very narrow view of what it is to be, just like the wellness industry did to women, right? You have to look this way,
Right.
you have to act this way, and it's in general quite regressive. And it can be really hard for adolescents and for young adults to try to fit into that narrow view of what it is to be a man.
And it's tied back to a lot of the political rhetoric that we hear around gender as well.
Hugely so.
Right.
Hugely so.
So how do we as a society combat wellness misinformation?
Look, we need to pause and reflect on what the body of evidence really tells us. And you know what the body of evidence tells us? You know this, right? It tells us that we need to exercise more, we need to not smoke, we need to drink in moderation or not at all, right? We need to eat a healthy diet. There's lots of variation there. We need to take your logical preventative steps, wear a seatbelt, get vaccinated. And we need to surround ourselves with people we love, be part of a good community. And that's kind of it, right? That's kind of it. Of course, socioeconomics matters a ton,
Sure.
right? Pick your parents. So we need broader societal action too. But always remember those science-informed basics when you're evaluating a wellness claim.
So in some ways, the science is simple.
The science is simple. We've known the answer.
Tim, great to have you on the show.
Thanks so much.